a student, Charles Hogan, and I did some experiments with pot and pot in 1974. We killed every plant. We tried it in 1975. We killed every plant. We said, this is silly. We're not going to kill any more plants, so we're not doing more of that. Well, what it turned out to be is our pot and pot was in soil that was heavy enough that the drainage was insufficient, and we simply suffocated the root system in late winter, early spring, when we finally got some rains. If you have soils that drain well, and it needs to drain well enough so that if you, and the suggested procedure that I have is if you dig a hole 12 inches deep, it doesn't have to be very big in diameter, you know, a normal post hole digger, and you fill it with water, wait about an hour, fill it with water again, and then check that at several intervals. If there's still water in that hole after 24 hours, it's not going to work. If the water is all drained out before 24 hours, the chances are it will work. But where, you know, the pot and pot, you know, as far as holding the plant stable and keeping it from blowing over, cooler temperatures, if your soil's drained, you could do that, and it'd be ideal as far as overwintering and that aspect. But the problem has been, well, several-fold. One is that if you're growing in a smooth conventional pot, and this is inside another pot, and I just cut the tops off so it wouldn't be in our road. This is a catalpa, again, with the nice white roots. But if this is setting inside of another pot in the ground, the number one problem that happens is the roots come out drain hole of the first pot and into the second pot. The second problem is you're still in an old smooth pot. And you have that for a root system. You know, they go out and hit the sidewall and they circle and they, you know. The third problem is let's say if you can get the thing out of the ground and the plant is halfway decent, you say, well, gosh, boy, I just got those harvested, so we'll let them sit there for a while we go on down the row and harvest some more. How long do you suppose it is from the time you get that out of the ground before the roots on this sunny side are dead? 15 minutes. The only reason I can say 15 minutes is that's the shortest time I use in the study. Set up a study with 0, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45. 15 minutes is all it takes to reach the lethal point. It's even worse with pot in a pot. One of the guys in Georgia did a study where they were comparing heat sensitivity of roots of plants grown pot in pot versus just conventional pots above ground. Those roots that have been in that cool environment in the ground were much more sensitive to heat than the ones in the pots that were above ground. So you've got three problems: root escape, root circling in the old smooth pot, and then death of the roots after you harvest it, which really sets the plant back. Annie and I did a study looking at using this white root trapper material 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And again, serendipity is such a wonderful thing. We set up the experiment in July, and by November the plants had grown well, and I was curious as to how they were doing. And they were trapper material that they were sewn up the seam, just like the bigger material you see over there. Well, I was curious as to how the roots were growing in there, because this was still pretty new material at that time. So I took some plants and just made one cut up the side, peeled the roots back a little bit and looked at them and said, wow, I'm pleased with the root development and branching and so forth. Put them back in the pot, left them in the ground for another full year. A year later, when I harvested them, I thought, well, there's going to be some major root escapes where I've made that cut. There weren't. What it says is that the capacity of that fabric laminated to that white coating is such that a root simply can't hit and go out that side. The only ones that happened to escape, and there were only a very few and very small, happened to grow exactly into that cut. We said, well, if that's the case, we don't need to sow that side. And so that's what this shows, where we simply took the tree, made a disc bottom. Their sides are made in two pieces, but they overlap about 3 inches. But what you have is, A, it's much more easily removed, and it's reusable. You can simply put this back in that pot, fill it up, and use it again. And instead of having all those roots circling around the outside, what you have are lots and lots of roots back inside that surface, multi-branched. We're so accustomed to seeing all those roots pressed against the outside wall that all this fibrous roots back inside, you're first kind of astonished that I'm not seeing the same thing that I'm used to. But by having this on the outside, again, we're reducing that temperature about 20 degrees. So we didn't get root death on the sunny side when we laid them on their side after harvest. We had no roots circling. They were easy to get off. And we didn't have any root escape, just a few minor roots. So the more I work with that, the more I like that as a technique for pot and pot. You know, we did a series of these. You know, here's a Shumert oak, and you see again the same circling roots, as opposed to when you hear that, you see all the roots that I'm breaking off, and yet you don't see roots circling against the sidewall. Yet the tree isn't complaining at all. And it's amazingly easy to get off compared to any of the old fabrics that we've ever worked with before.